Last night I was in the cafe for the presentation, at least the first part of the presentation, with that wonderful film. What's it called? Celebrate What's Right with the World. And I hope somebody will give me the link. Is it on the internet?
It actually is. It's just a preview on the internet, but it is the whole film.
Mm-hmm.
The actual DVD is quite expensive, but I was able to find it on the internet. So.
That's wonderful. If you would give me the link, I really would like to share it with my friends. It's a wonderful film, just from all points of view. One of the things that sticks in my mind, and there are many in that film, is the way he talks about the concept that perception influences our reality. That it really is all about perception. And it's true. It depends on what's in here and how we see things. There's some, for example, Swami Kriyananda often would say, if a person moves to a new city, let's say you're moving from California to Portland, and you're an artist. Well, within 24 hours, you're probably going to know some artists. But if you're a thief, within 24 hours, you're probably going to know some thieves. Because it's what you're putting out from your own inner perception, and your inner perception of who you are. Now, what's interesting is that our perception is almost never true. It's not perfect. We don't see the world around us as it really is, because our perception is clouded by what we could call filters, just like a camera. You can put on a camera lens a yellow filter and you'll see things with a yellow glow, or through rose-colored glasses, or whatever it is. You can put a fisheye lens on and you'll see things slightly distorted. Now, all of us perceive the world in ways which are distorted by our filters. What are some of our filters? Well, one, just to mention one, and I'll mention a few others. One is fear. If we're afraid of something, that very much skews our perception and also our lives. If we're afraid of something, we're not going to want to do it. Often we are drawn to what we fear. I know some people who are incredibly afraid of snakes, for example. Well, I don't love snakes, but I don't have a particular fear of them. I fear other things, but not particular snakes. Well, at Ananda Village, those of you who know it, there are rattlesnakes. I lived in Ananda Village and at the meditation retreat where there really are a lot of rattlesnakes for 16 years. I never saw a live rattlesnake, ever. But they're everywhere. Whereas people I know who are afraid of rattlesnakes, they saw them everywhere. They'd go for a walk, they'd walk from the temple to the dining room, and they'd see a snake. Also, in a positive way, celebrate what's right with life. The man who made this film had a filter on his perception that life is wonderful, that life is beautiful, that there's beauty everywhere, that we just need to be with it, stay with it long enough to see what's special and what's beautiful. There's so many filters. Prejudice, for example. All of us have prejudices, even if we don't think we do. When I was growing up, I was absolutely sure I had no prejudice about anything, about race, about religion, about whatever. And I went to visit when I was at Ananda, and I went out on teaching tours. I went to visit some people of ours who were living in North Carolina. Now, one of those people was Usha, whose class is next. And I was there with them and doing classes and talking. And I was thinking, gosh, these people don't seem to be highly intelligent. And we were talking about different things and about our background. And I come to know that her former husband who was her husband at that time, has a PhD.
Michael Coons? Michael?
No. And so her husband had a PhD. She had a master's degree in library science. And I thought, oh my God. I mean, they're more highly educated than I am. Why did I have that thought? And then I realized it's because they were speaking with a Southern accent. And I never recognized that I thought people who speak with a Southern accent were less intelligent than people who don't. It's strange. Why? Why would I think that? It's not something that I decided that I was going to be prejudiced against Southerners. But we all have prejudices. It could be little things, people who don't dress nicely or don't have good color combinations or whatever it is. We all have prejudices which are based on our own way of being. It's a protective, it's a defense mechanism. All of these filters and perceptions come from one basic principle, and that's the principle of duality, and that's what I'd like to talk with you about today. I've written on the board 2 words, and these 2 words describe a very important aspect of duality. In this world, I'm sure you know already, it's been part of your studies, that whereas pure consciousness exists and is the principle of one, and we're going to talk about this in Usha's class, that when the world is created, where there's actually an expression of the one consciousness, at that moment there is duality, and we'll get much more into duality in this afternoon's class. There's never one absolute. There's always 2 sides. And one reflection of the absolute in this world is called the soul. Yeah. Do you have a soul? What do you think?
Yeah.
Morgan,
yes.
you have a soul? Anybody else have a soul? Anybody not have a soul? Okay. Sri Yukteswar, this picture's right there. Sri Yukteswar says that's not true. We don't have a soul. We are a soul. And that soul has a body. So this is the basic Maya. It's the basic illusion in our lives. We think that we are a body that has a soul. But it's really the opposite. We are a soul that has a body. And that body has been born in a certain place, in a particular form. Yeah, it could be a man or a woman, it could speak this language or that language. But that's not a reflection of our soul. Our soul is a pure reflection in potential of the infinite consciousness. Everything that we associate as being a quality of the infinite consciousness, even though it has no qualities, all of those qualities are reflected in the soul. What qualities do you think of when you think of pure consciousness or God? How would you describe that? And there are many definitions. There's no wrong answer here.
Light.
Love.
Light. Okay. So consciousness is light. What else?
Love.
Love.
Joy.
Joy. Okay, so these are aspects of superconsciousness. That consciousness is also infinite. Omnipresent. What does omnipresence mean to you?
Always here.
Always here, always now, and always everywhere. Omnipresent. Meaning as present on the furthest star, galaxy, universe, as it is right now, in us. Omniscient. What does omniscience mean to you? All-knowing. Knows everything. Because it is everything. Eternal. Not bound by time. So we see that that consciousness is limitless. There's no boundaries to it. It's not bound by knowledge. It is pure wisdom. It's not bound by space. It exists equally. What does that mean for us? It means that that consciousness, which is in your soul, is every bit as evolved as it was in Jesus or Buddha or Yogananda or any of the realized masters. God is no more present, infinite consciousness is no more present in Jesus or Buddha or any of the avatars than he is in you. Yogananda used to say to his disciples, "Why do you say to me, when will I find God? When will I find God? You have him now." So that's the omnipresent part of that consciousness aspect. Okay, so this is our soul. And our soul reflects all of that when we have the filter in here, I am the soul. But there's not only one actor on the stage of duality, we have the other part, which is the ego. Now the ego is the soul's twin. They're twin brothers or twin sisters, or twin brother and sister, as you will. They are twins. They're two aspects of the same thing. So the soul, according to Yogananda, his definition, does anybody know his definition of the soul? It's the spirit or infinite consciousness which has become individualized. So it's infinite consciousness in you. So you are, as they say, a chip off the old block.
Soul is the infinite consciousness individualized?
The soul is the reflection of spirit. It is individualized spirit. So a two-word definition. The soul is individualized spirit. So the spirit has become individual in you. And you contain all of those qualities. But you bring something special. You bring your individualized nature to it. Because there never has been a soul exactly like you. Each soul is unique. Just like snowflakes, just like whatever it is, all unique. No, there will never be anybody like you. Maybe sometimes you think like that. And it's true. It's very, very true. And the whole purpose of evolution is for each one of us to discover and live and express fully our unique nature. Without us, without each one of us, the universe is not complete. The symphony of life is not complete until each one of us understands what is our own instrument, what is our own song, and we play it. We play it to perfection. Now, that's the good part. Let's talk about the ego, which is not necessarily the bad part. The ego, as I said, is the twin of the soul, but the perception changes. The soul is reflecting spirit, just like a mirror that's pointed to catch the sun rays. But this mirror has two facets. There's two sides of the mirror. And whereas one facet of the mirror is catching the spirit, the other side is catching the creation. Yogananda's definition of the ego is also very simple. The ego is the soul, which has become identified with the body. The body being a symbol of physical manifestation. So the soul, the ego is the soul which has become identified with matter. How much do we identify with our physical bodies? Somebody says to you, "How are you?" And you answer, "I feel lousy, I have the flu." Who's talking? Is it the soul or the ego?
The ego.
It's the ego. The soul doesn't have the flu. You know, the soul is not diminished because the body has the flu. So if we have soul perception, and if we're in soul perception through our practices of meditation and being centered and still, if we have soul perception and somebody asks us how we are, and we do have a flu, how do we answer from the soul?
My body feels tired, or my body has the flu.
Okay, so we can say, I feel great. That's the soul speaking.
Yeah.
My body has the flu. And those two realities coexist because there is a difference between truth and fact. What's the truth of the matter?
The soul is always okay.
The soul is always okay. I feel great when I have perception of my soul. I feel great. My body has the flu. That's a fact. How long is your body going to have the flu? Not forever. But how long are you going to be great? Forever and ever and ever. So facts are not the truth. Facts are important. We need to recognize it. If you have a flu, for heaven's sakes, we need to take care of it. Body needs rest to get over the flu. Maybe it needs liquids. Maybe it needs echinacea. Maybe it needs a juice fast. So we can't ignore facts. But we don't want to identify or be limited by those facts. When I went to Italy, I couldn't speak Italian, but I knew I wanted to and I needed to learn. And I would always pray before going to class, let me think like an Italian. And our teachers would always say that, you know, don't think like an American. Because the sentence structure is different. You know, words get put into a different order. And we would try to create sentences that had the same syntax as in English, and it didn't work. So we had to begin to think and also listen and hear, because so much of Italian is how a word sounds. A word's going to change its article. It'll change being masculine or feminine. And who decides those things? I always think men do. But for example, snake is masculine, il serpente, but a poisonous snake is feminine. La vipere. Okay, who did that? All right. Anyway, but it will change often depending on the sound. It can change from masculine to feminine because people just say, oh, it doesn't sound right. So you have to change your perception to hear as they do and think as they do. So as the man in the film was saying last night, perception is everything. When we have the filter of the ego on, we see things in an extremely limited way because we think we are certain things and that we can't be certain other things. You know, I'm in a process of helping to make a film, never having made a film, never knowing anything about filmmaking. And the first thing to change is perception. It all starts in here. I mean, so how important is it that you have never done something before? Other people have. It's doable. It happens all the time. So why can't we do it? Because of our perception. When we're in the ego is going to tell us you can't. Based on your past experience, based on facts. You don't have the talent. You're not artistic. You don't pay attention to details. So this is the voice of ego that's talking to us. Now, the soul lives in consciousness. I mean, it is consciousness. It knows it is limited, limitless, and infinite. But the ego lives restricted by time and space. We have two bodies. We have our physical body, with which the ego identifies. One of the greatest most important aspects of the ego is that it identifies and it desires. These are the two keynotes, the most important words. You know, if there was a cosmic computer and you wanted to put up a website about the ego, you would keyword it to be identify and desire. So the ego identifies with a very limited reality. That's the filter over our eyes. But the soul also identifies, but it doesn't desire. No desire for the soul. Although we can say the soul desires to go home. Just like E.T., phone home. But it's like, that's a whole other discussion. It's a pure desire. It's a positive desire. Soul identifies with the spirit, the ego identifies with the body. Now we have two different bodies. We have our physical body and we have our energy body. We can call it our electric body, our astral body. And that's what we're really supposed to be talking about today, is our astral body. I read some about an orthopedic surgeon and orthopedist working with bones. So good. This was already back in the 1970s. He was a brilliant orthopedic surgeon. His name was Robert Becker. And if you're interested in this argument, in this subject, you can look him up and his research. Robert Becker was in line to be nominated for a Nobel Prize in his field, I think in medicine, because he had created many innovations in the field of bone surgery. He intuitively understood that in impossible situations where bones were so shattered that they couldn't be set and mended, that the mending process or the growth of new bone cells and new bone could be stimulated by electricity. And he was the first one who worked with sending very minute impulses of electricity into a shattered bone. He would set the bone and then into the cast would implant electrodes and put very minute impulses of electricity. And that electricity would stimulate the bone growth, even in shattered bones, and the bones would mend. Now, this was a great invention, and it has been used and developed by later generations of scientists, and it's used to extremely good effect. But nobody understood how it worked. But Dr. Becker postulated that the body has a parallel healing system, like an electrical, he didn't know what to call it. But he says that there's the physical healing mechanisms, in the body, so we can give the body food and oxygen and medications and whatever it is. But there is a parallel, energetic body that transmits very subtle energies. And at that point, they thought he was crazy. And he was actually shunned by the medical community and never received a nomination for a Nobel because they thought he was just out of his mind. What he was postulating is what we know as the astral body. So let's take a look at the astral body, see what it is, how it's formed, and how it's useful to us, how we can be in touch with it, how we can change our perception from our physical being, our physical body, to our energy body. Because when we are in the flow of our energy body, our potential is enormous. Our capacities are enormous. There's nothing we can't do when we align our energy body with the infinite spirit. It'll just flow through us and make life incredibly interesting. Life can be boring. Yogananda called it anguishing monotony because we're trapped by the ego. And no matter how many times we come back again and again, we have the same perception, the same mindset. It's so hard to get out of it. We'll never get out of it as long as we're identifying with a physical body. Many people, when they meet me, they say, God, you're so small. I thought you were like 6 feet tall. I said, I am. You know, that's my perception, you know, of who I am. I'm huge. Because I don't think of myself. Even when I see myself on film, I think, God, she's so short. You know, that's not me. That's not you. That's not us. You know, it's not what we see in the mirror. So I'm going to give you a chance right now to ask some questions about this philosophy, and we'll have more time this afternoon in Usha's class to get even deeper back. We're going to go back up the cosmological scale this afternoon. But do you have any questions at this point before we get into clarity?
So what are some ways of attuning ourselves to the energy body?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that in this part of the class now. Other questions? Anything more you wanted about the soul, the ego? Okay. Carol, you gotta get a new box of chocolates.
You were only here less than a day in the class, and already the chalk has been ordered.
Great.
Oh.
This is one happy guy. Okay, this is supposed to be a head, and this is the funnel of the medulla. All right, so right there, you've probably heard about how the physical body is created, about the union of the ovum and the sperm. Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so the two unite to become one, and then they divide and subdivide and subdivide. Now, the first part of the human body that is created, and this afternoon we're going to talk about the prana, the spark of the divine life energy that comes in to that cell. It's intelligent. This intelligent energy creates first the brain and the spinal cord. And this is called the central nervous system and the sympathetic. And from that, the body develops. The brain being the command center, and the spine, the astral spine, or the Sushumna, having the energy centers, the dynamos, as Yogananda called them, from which this enormous cosmic energy is sent out through the nervous system into the body. So let's take a closer look at the Sushumna and the chakras. So just supposing that this is the Sushumna. The cervical and the spiritual eye. The intelligent energy, or the prana, when it comes into the body, is in a downward flow, meaning from whence it has come, which is a pure vibration, and again, that's this afternoon's class, it becomes ever more concrete or physical until it gets to the physical body and the physical world. That's as physical as it's going to get. So it comes in to this point at the medulla and begins to create the physical body, but it's flowing downwards towards physical reality, towards the earth. And it flows down and creates these 6 energy centers as the starting point. We can imagine that prana, life force coming into the physical body, as being like an electrical plant, which has an enormous amount of wattage in it. Much too much. Got a bigger picture, Charles?
It's slightly bigger.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you very much. We couldn't connect a 60-watt light bulb directly to the dynamo up the road because it would burn it out. So this power, this prana, has to be stepped down until it can be used by the physical body. This stepping down process happens through our energetic body or through the chakras. So each one of them is a dynamo of energy from which it sends out through the nervous system its energy, and through the nerves, the physical body is created. So the first chakra, called Muladhara, and it's good for you to learn the Sanskrit words, so you can always talk about them wherever you go in your world. They're always the same. This is in English called the coccyx center. So the Muladhara chakra, the radiating nerves are the ones that are in charge of or control the legs, the feet, the legs, and the elimination system. We're talking now just physically, and then later we're going to talk about spiritually on a karmic level. But on a physical level, this first chakra controls the legs. So Dr. Becker, when he was sending electricity, if the break was in the lower part of the body, what that electricity was actually doing was stimulating this chakra here. And it would then inform these nerves to send more energy and help regrow those bone cells. There's a lot, now, like 30 years later after Dr. Becker, there's a lot of research into stem cells. And Yogananda talked about that, but that's a whole other thing. That when we stimulate what he called the engineers of the body, the somatic cells, that bones, tissues, organs can be recreated. So
when you stimulate the what?
When you can stimulate everything. The bones, the tissues, organs themselves can be recreated. In fact, Dr. Becker, the same Dr. Becker, did an experiment which to us seems very cruel because it was, using animals, but he took a frog, cut off one of the frog's legs, implanted small electrodes at the incision, and put through minute quantities of energy, and the frog regrew its leg up to the first joint. His students carried on the experiment and were able to stimulate the growth of the entire leg, the regrowth. That's the first time in an animal of that level of evolution that it could recreate part of itself. Lower level animals, like worms, some worms, if you cut them in half, or a salamander, if it loses a tail, will regrow it. But as the central nervous system evolves, it loses because it becomes centralized. It loses its capacity to regrow. But Yogananda predicted that human beings will discover their own ability to regrow lost limbs or organs, like a liver, from inside when we understand and use our energy body. When that is our perception, when we're living in our energy body. Now, for those of you who are on the spiritual path, on the path of Kriya, we need to have a very close relationship with the chakras. We need to be living in our energy body and stimulating them. And in one answer to Clarity's question, how do we do that? We do it through meditation, especially we do it through Kriya Yoga, and especially through the higher practices of Kriya that deal with the chakras on an individual basis. The first generic Kriya brings our attention and energy into the Sushumna. The first Kriya works with the Sushumna. The second, third, and fourth Kriyas work with each chakra, stimulating them.
Are the Kriyas that you're talking about the ones that Yogananda taught?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is Muladhara, Swadhisthana. Swadhisthana. This is the second chakra, or the sacral center. I don't know how to spell coccyx.
C-O-X-X-Y-X? No?
I'll just-
C-O-C-C-Y-X?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to abbreviate it, and we all know what it means. Okay, so this is sacral. So this is lumbar. Dorsal. I don't know these words so well. I know the other ones. This is cervical. These are medical terms that relate to the vertebrae, not to the Sushumna. So the Swadhisthana is located about this far above the coccyx center and deals with our reproductive system. That's what it controls. The third center, or Manipura, is located in the Sushumna, opposite the navel center, and deals with our digestion, with the stomach. The dorsal center or heart center is called Anahata. Heart, lungs, arms. The cervical center, or the Vishuddha, the cervical center has to do with the throat and the vocal cords. And the spiritual eye, the sixth center, as you know, has two poles. The negative pole is called the Ajna, spelled in different ways, but this is the way that Yogananda spells it. Like Jnana, this is Ajna chakra, is this pole, the negative pole. And its positive pole is the Kutastha, Chaitanya. So, negative, not being bad, is the place at which that first cell was created. And that's where duality begins. Each of these chakras, traditionally, is pictured as having a certain number of petals of a lotus. The Agnya chakra at the medulla oblongata has 2. All of the others have many, many more. But this is where duality begins in the physical body. So its negative pole at the medulla is the Ajna, the positive pole is here at the spiritual eye. Now,
What's the English name for that one?
which one? The spiritual eye? Spiritual eye,
Oh, okay.
yeah. spiritual eye, Christ center. Yogananda calls it the medullary eye, because it's a reflection. The spiritual eye is only a reflection, like looking in a mirror at the medulla. So, I mean, it's not like a center in itself. It is really just a reflection of the medulla.
So maybe I have this wrong, but I was reading in the Raja Yoga book that they say that the third eye chakra is like the sun, and the negative pole is like the moon,
Sure.
Which is the ego, which is getting the light. Like it doesn't have light on its own; it's just getting the light from the sun, as the moon does.
Yes, if it chooses to do that.
Right.
But the ego is thinking that it is its own light. And
Okay.
that's part of what happens in our spiritual path, is that we purify the ego. You know, we don't get rid of the ego. In the Mahabharata, do you all know about the Mahabharata? Anyway, there's one character that represents the ego in that story. And he was the character that was granted immortality. He could never be killed. His name was Bhishma. And the ego, we never can kill the ego. You can't do it. But what we can do is purify it so that it identifies with its twin, with the soul. Even saints have an ego, but their ego is pure ego because they identify with God. Yes, Rachel?
Doesn't Bhishma get killed in the end, though?
Huh?
Doesn't Bhishma get killed in the end, though?
He gets killed only because he permits himself to be killed.
Yeah.
Okay, he could not, nobody could kill him. He had to give it. He had to give it up. And he put down his weapon and he let himself be killed. A very complicated story. Yes.
I
Clarity.
find that really interesting what you said about the third eye being the reflection.
It's what Yogananda says.
Can you elaborate what it's actual reflection of, or where's the image coming from?
Right. The image that we know as being the spiritual eye, which is this very small star surrounded by a field of blue with a golden ring around it. Okay. When we see this here, it's like a cross section of seeing the entire Sushumna. It's like looking down or looking up through the Sushumna, and you're seeing a cross section. And these are this is the astral. The yellow border is our energy body. The blue field is our astral body, and the silver white star is the tunnel. This opens up into being a tunnel that takes us beyond the physical world into the infinite world. And that's what we're seeing.
Is it a manifestation of the Sushumna, or?
It's a manifestation of the entire Sushumna, and especially of the chakras.
Wow.
And then it goes out. And in meditation, you'll be seeing the chakras in this way, rather than in this way. Because really, our astral body is not here. You know, our astral body is everywhere. But again, perception changes. Yes, Tonya, and then Margarita.
So you're talking about an astral body and an energetic body? So
As being the same thing.
Oh, okay. So but the outside ring is the golden part, which is the energy body, and the inside blue part is the astral body.
No, the blue is our cosmic body. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Causal.
Okay.
Causal. This is the causal here.
So energetic and astral body are the same.
They're the same. And then the star is the doorway to superconsciousness. Now, I'd like to, in these last moments, we talked about physically.
Margarita had a question.
Oh, Margarita,
No,
thank you.
I'm just saying, in most charts you see, there's the crown chakra.
Yes, thank you for.
Can you talk about why
Mhm.
it's not? We really don't talk about it
Mhm.
much.
So, it's supposed to be a 1,000-petal lotus up there. The crown chakra is not in the Sushumna. It's It's not in the spine. It's here on the top of the brain. In fact, it's where the different hemispheres of the brain come together. Now, Yogananda says it's not a center that we can consciously work with. We work in the Sushumna. Now, when our energy comes into the Sushumna, and we're able, using our willpower and techniques, to bring it up to the spiritual eye, a channel opens between the 6th chakra and the 7th. Now there's 2 channels possible. One goes from the medulla to the 7th chakra, the other goes from the spiritual eye. When the back door is opened, it can be very dangerous. That back door is opened by things like traumatic experiences, opened by the use of drugs, where we lose control over our energy, and hallucinogenic experiences will happen when this doorway is open, and there's no control.
The top?
Yeah, it can just go up, and then you have hallucinogenic
From the back
experiences.
door.
From the back door.
From the medulla, in other words, to
Right.
the crown chakra.
Right. Now,
That's the back door.
what
route.
we do in Kriya is we bring the energy to the medulla and through the brain to the spiritual eye. Then this door, this pathway will open. So Yogananda says the spiritual eye is like the agent, or does double duty for the crown chakra, bringing our energy to a focus in the positive nadi. Nadi means energetic channel. And then this will open automatically. So in the higher kriyas, there's no specific focus on the crown chakra, more still on the spiritual eye. But the more we stimulate the spiritual eye, the more this will open. When a realized master leaves his body, he leaves through the crown chakra. And the head actually opens. Just like when a baby is born, this part of the skull is very soft. Okay? This opens up, and sometimes the disciples say they see it just opens like that. Other people leave through the medulla.
Who aren't realized?
Right. Yeah, and then, we go into different astral worlds and whatever. But a fully realized master, the crown chakra opens up visibly. You had a question? Or you had a question? Nobody had a question.
That's why there's heat there.
There's heat in when?
When someone exits consciously through the crown chakra, the crown of the head is hot.
Is it? Huh.
Yes, and when Janamata left her body, Yogananda had people come and touch the crown
Really?
of her head
How
and feel how
interesting.
hot it was.
Mhm.
But the energy, the astral energy, and the prana, plus the incredible energy it would take for that
For that to open.
that to open would generate a lot of energy or heat.
Yes.
So why is it dangerous when the medulla opens to here? Because there's no control?
It's beyond our control. It's something that, I don't know. I've just experienced it, and I can tell you it's not pleasant.
Because it can go haywire in so many ways.
Absolutely. I mean, for every great LSD trip, there's going to be a bummer. And they're terrible. They're terrible. You think you'll never be able to pull yourself out.
And some people never do.
And some people
They
never
have
do.
permanent death.
Some
Are
people
you
never do.
saying that it's drug induced or that it's like when you take drugs?
No. It's when you do take drugs, it can stimulate that. But also traumas, physical traumas, can do it. It's what's called really bad experiences.
Bad trips.
Bad trips, thank you. Bad trips.
I've also heard of people's kundalini rising or things like that, before they were ready.
That's right.
Is that also something that's
What happens.
happens there?
That's exactly what happens.
Oh, okay.
And Kundalini, let's get into a few other things here. These nerve that go out. This is all, the system is called Nadi. Nadi is the name for an energy channel. They are the nerves, but they're also the main energies in the Sushumna. The Sushumna itself is a Nadi. It is a channel of energy. It's the Nadi in which we practice Kriya. And there is the Nadi coming from the medulla, the dual forces, duality. There is one that goes up the left and down the right. And the left, as you know already, is called the Ida, spelled with a dot under there, and the Pingala. These are the two principal, and this is the sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system. It's reflected in it. And the energy goes around. So when we inhale, the energy is coming up in the Ida. When we exhale, the energy is going down in the Pingala. In the yogic system in Raja Yoga, you'll read in the books, these are 2 of 5 pranas called the pran and the apan. So the Ida is the pran current, and the Pingala is the apan current.
What does that mean? Like keep reading about the pran and the apan, but I don't understand what that means.
Okay, it's the reflection within us of duality. So when we inhale, we are bringing cosmic energy and causing it to rise within us. And when we exhale, it's a purifying energy, or an energy that can take us down into identification with the world. So it's the uplifting and the downward pulling energy. Swami Kriyananda talks about this in the film, Finding Happiness. At the end, it's one of his last little messages, that there are 2 currents in the world. One that sees everything that's right with the world and with us, and the other which is negative, which identifies with facts and with limitations. There's not enough oil under the ground to keep our cars going for more than 20 years. Okay, that's a fact, but is it true? Is it the truth? The truth is, energy is unlimited. Oil is not unlimited. Petroleum is not, but energy is. And there are other sources of energy. There's the sun and the wind and thermal and geothermal and so forth. So the truth is, okay, so again, pran, we're inhaling, we're affirming, we're bringing the energy up. Apan, we're going down towards the world, or purifying. Now, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that realization happens when the pran and apan currents are perfectly balanced. So when the energy is perfectly balanced in these, the Sushumna opens up. And then we can begin to work inside the Sushumna. We can work with the different chakras. Now let's look really quickly at the spiritual qualities that are in the chakras, because they're both positive and negative. Let's say constructive and less constructive qualities that are in the chakras. And we'll do this briefly. In Muladhara chakra, the positive side that we want to stimulate and that we do stimulate through the practice of Kriya is a sense of stability, of being stability, grounded, solid, spiritual quality of determination, of constancy, of regularity, of discipline, to some extent, comes in that chakra. It's extremely important. The other side, everything being dual in nature, is that this stability can become rigidity or inflexibility, prejudice, bigotry. It has to be this way. I do something this way, it has to be this way. It's one of the filters, the prejudice in our minds. So we go up to the next chakra, to the Swadhisthana, and its positive nature is flexibility. We give that inflexibility to the first chakra, moving it up to flexibility, fluidity. The element that's associated with Muladhara is earth. Swadhisthana?
Water.
Water. Water has no boundaries. And it moves and flows and will always find a way. So the second chakra is creativity. The creative nature that goes beyond the square and is going to flow, is going to be open. Receptivity, sensitivity is in the second chakra. I said creativity, and not just sexual creativity, but creativity of all kinds comes from that aspect in the second chakra. What's the downside of the second chakra? Being spaced out. Being so flexible and so fluid that you have no point of reference. That there's not a path that you're following. Oh, well, this is interesting. Oh, well, that is interesting. So, superficiality. Not going deep into anything. Just touching on, oh, you know, just like water. Let's flow here and let's flow here. So obviously we want to combine the positive qualities of all of the chakras. Moving up, the element of fire is in Manipura chakra. Manipura chakra, in a positive way, is self-discipline. The fire of self-discipline. It's the warrior. Its courage is in Manipura chakra. But mostly inner discipline, that kind of courage. The downside of the third chakra is wanting to control other people or wanting to control the environment. We can influence the environment, but that energy wants to control it, to bring it on, to harness it. So it's good to be self-disciplined, to control our energies, our thoughts, but we don't want to try to control others. They have the freedom to make mistakes. Anahat chakra, this is the air center, and it's expansion of feeling, of love, of compassion, potentially of divine love. The fourth chakra is dangerous. The lower three chakras are, it's called the lower triangle here, these three chakras. These are material. The upper three chakras are the more spiritual ones. But the heart center, when the energy is coming up, we can embrace others. But its downside is being personal about it, being particular. I love this person, but not that person. I will give this person my energy and attention, but not that person. So it's being personal in that sense. Those of you who have met Swami Kriyananda, perhaps you felt his love. He loves people, but his love is not personal. It's individual. Yes, he does love individuals, but it's not personal. It's a divine love. So when we meditate, we feel the energy coming up. Often we'll come out of a meditation and we'll just want to hug and embrace and kiss, and then it can just start going out and become very, very personal. A lot of yogis fall from a higher state because they let that energy of love become personal and want to have a personal relationship that's exclusive. So this is the fourth chakra, Anahat. Vishuddha is the ether center. Ether is something that we can't see. But it's ethereal, like the word ethereal. This is the center of calmness, expansive calmness. that lake that's calm, that reflects higher realities. So it's the ability, it's really of the 8 aspects of superconsciousness, it's calmness aspect, also peace. But being able to stay centered, to stay calm in the midst of crashing worlds. Its downside is that it can, and I don't understand this, I'm just telling you what I've read, in that state of calmness, the ego can agitate and become bored. And the individual will start looking for external experiences that stimulate. I don't understand that. I mean, I would be happy to be calm and peaceful all the time, not thinking it would be boring. But we could see this in ourselves. You know, okay, I've done my 3-hour meditation, now I've got to get out. You know, do something, I've got to move around, and let's go out for pizza, and that kind of thing. The spiritual eye.
So what were the negative qualities of that one?
Boredom.
Okay.
And looking for external stimulation. So the spiritual eye, we know we have the medulla oblongata, the ego, and the spiritual eye, which is the Christ consciousness. That's the center of illumination. And it's the doorway. The spiritual eye is the doorway to superconscious experience. So the star, as I said, becomes a tunnel of light. People in the near-death experience, they see the tunnel, they pass through the tunnel and go into either light or darkness. So, very briefly, that was just touching upon both the physical aspects and the qualities of the different chakras.